The Name of the Game is presented by Bravo, a marketing arm of Brokerage Corporation, the practice enhancement company. Welcome to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Hi everyone, I'm your host Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money gamer extraordinaire. We're enlisting your help to join us in the fight against breast cancer by wearing pink like a pro in the annual October Breast Cancer Awareness Campaign. On today's show, we're featuring supplemental insurance products that can make a real difference if you experience a critical or catastrophic illness. I'm featuring two of the leading impaired risk experts in securing insurance coverage and interviewing breast cancer survivor Molly Mabry. We'll walk you through her triumph through breast cancer and the challenges women have to establish regular cancer exams. In the G segment, it's game on as we learn how to present cancer to insurance companies. In the A segment, we'll hear Molly Mabry's own story of terror and triumph over breast cancer. In the M segment, Molly will be our money mentor and introduce you to supplemental insurance products. In the E segment, we'll watch Molly Mabry's inspiring internet interview. Well, welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you, Steve. Good
Joe,
to be here.
Hey, it's good to have you both here. Of course, we're right in the middle of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we're really featuring today's impairment is breast cancer. Now, I know this is really a myth out in consumer land. Most people, Tim, say, you know what, I have breast cancer, I can't get insurance. I've had it.
Steve, we hear that all the time. We hear it from advisors. We hear it from consumers. I've had an event, breast cancer, and I can't qualify for insurance. And that is one of the biggest myths that we've seen in underwriting breast cancer. In fact, we're seeing many people get standard to preferred rates that have had breast cancer.
Now, when you say that, did they have to have some time out after that event? Like a year after the event, 2 years, stage 1, stage 2? What's the rules of engagement?
It depends on the staging. Mm-hmm. Certainly, the earlier the diagnosis, the type of detection that the facility used to determine what type of cancer it was, and then the course of treatment will determine how soon. And I know our Joe Brita here can elaborate more on some of the outcomes that we've seen.
Well, Joe, when I'm thinking of carriers, now they've really changed the way they look at this. I mean, 10 years ago, we were not getting the benevolent underwriting we're getting today. So we've really learned a lot. The medical advancement has been huge. Talk to me a little bit about when we're trying to look at a case, how can I pre-qualify a client so that I can say, hey, should I really do this? How do I do it? How do I position the case? You do this every day. Talk about boots on the ground underwriting.
Yeah, well, underwriting, especially in cancers, is pretty black and white. You know, pathology is a pathology, and the staging is a staging. Where we are different, where we come in, is we try to take that black and white and be the client's advocate and be able to pull out some positives, challenge the manual. You know, where the manual says do this, that's a guideline. That's not the rule. And to be able to pull out positives, make the carrier more comfortable based on their awareness, based on their prevention, you know, post-treatment for prevention of recurrences. Those are the ways that we're able to come out with a better outcome.
Now, the proprietary process that you use actually ferrets out these issues, and you'll know specifically what carrier, because not every carrier looks at these APSs and some of the data that you're collecting in the same way.
Correct. Yeah, some carriers are more aggressive than others, even down to specific cancers. Some carriers like certain types of cancers where they feel they can be more aggressive based on the data they have versus others. And that's our job to know that.
Tim, I've heard you say this is one of your mantras, that you say about half of America who's already has a policy in force is probably paying too much or in the wrong rate class. Is that true even in breast cancer?
I would say so, yes. And that is a bold statement we make.
It is.
And we see it day in and day out, Steve, where people come to us with insurance that they own. And the process that Joe is explaining is underwriting advocacy. And so often, the advisor and or the client do not know to ask the next questions, or they are not working with a firm or an insurance company that treats certain cancers or certain conditions in a different light. Our role at Ash Brokerage is to be that client's advocate. And when we see people that are rated, and you don't even have to be rated, it can be standard or preferred, you still might not be in the right rate class. So what we do is through our team of underwriters, our medical director, and the number of cases that we look at on an annual basis, we know where to go, who to go to, and we find in that statistic. It's not just a number we throw out there. We see that in over half of the situations that we're reviewing where folks are in the wrong rate class.
To me, that's an amazing issue. If you're already have a policy in force and you have breast cancer, you may want to do a relook on this. We're talking about saving money on an indemnification plan. And I think that's really worth looking at. Joe, when you're looking at carriers, there's so many carriers that we deal with. I mean, we're talking almost 100 different types of carriers. But how many really play in this space when you're talking about breast cancer?
Yeah, well, you're looking at, depending on term and permanent. Mm-hmm. Some carriers are more aggressive in those different areas.
Let me just stop you there. Why is that? Why is there such a distinction on product? The 20-year term rate versus a permanent policy. It would seem like it's so close from a mortality point of view.
Well, not necessarily the mortality point of view, but you've got we are in the unbiased approach, mm-hmm. right? So we're looking at what's the best option for the client. If that may mean that John Hancock, for example, is very competitive in the permanent land, but they don't have the most competitive term pricing. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't be right for us to place a client with John Hancock in term, mm-hmm. just as an example. Mm-hmm.
So you're ferreting out, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're making a tale of two cities. I'm looking at product arrangement, first in the global view, term or perm, and then I'm looking from that. Then I'm starting to look at those specific areas in term or those specific areas in permanent that you want to have them look at this case the way you packaged it.
Absolutely right. And that's where Tim says a lot. Our job is to be a matchmaker for the client and the carrier.
So in effect, we are eHarmony.com, basically.
Correct. We are the eHarmony.com for life insurance.
I love that. In fact, I want to just start doing our cases on eBay and just see how that goes. Well, Tim, when we're thinking about this, I mean, you've been underwriting, since the day you were born practically. You've been in this business a long time. I've known you ever since you're in your late 20s. But when I'm looking at cases like this at Breast Cancer Awareness Month, you're really inviting people that have policies. That's what I'm hearing you say. Inviting people that have policies on the books that have been rated to get a second look, a second opinion.
Yes. We say this, getting a second opinion only produces a good outcome. And what I mean by that is simple. You either validate that what you own is priced correctly and performing the way you want it to, or we find opportunities to either lower your price, get you enhanced coverage, and that's our role. That's why we say doing a review, doing an audit, only good will come from it. And it's not just in-force policies, Steve. Again, you started by asking the question, what do, we try to keep people from assuming they can get a certain, or that it's too expensive. Mm-hmm. And so our role, our job is to help folks understand that just because you've had an impairment, that don't falsely assume that you cannot get valuable and cost-effective protection.
When we come back from the break, I'll introduce you to breast cancer survivor Molly Mabry, and you can hear her journey from terror to triumph in the A segment of the show. We'll be right back after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Welcome back to The Name of the Game. I'm Steve Savant, and just a heads up, before moving forward with anything that you hear on our show, always consult your doctor and your insurance professional. Coming up in the A segment, I want to introduce you to Molly Mabry, supplemental insurance product expert and breast cancer survivor.
Well, welcome to the show, Molly.
It's nice to meet you.
How long have you been in our business?
I started about 5 years ago.
Wow, so you're really recent. What did you come out of then?
I have my own business for a home-based business, and I did that while my children were growing up.
How did you like doing something at home? Can you work out of your house and really get things done with the children?
Well, it's not that easy, but I somehow manage.
How many children do you have?
I have 3.
You have 3 children. And what's their ages now?
I've got 2 in college who are 19 and 18, wow. And then I have a 13-year-old.
Well, now you moved into our business. How did you even get into our practice?
Well, this is a relationship business, and I got into this through a next door neighbor. He actually thought I would be great in the insurance field, and he asked me to join his practice. We really at that time didn't know what I was going to do there, but opportunities arise when you're ready, so
Well, you've had no prior experience in this area at all. Is that correct?
that's correct.
So what area of the business are you in? Are you medical? Are you long-term care? What are you in?
I am specifically focused in supplemental benefits, and that includes short-term disability, accident, critical illness, cancer, life, and supplemental life insurance products.
Now, is that always group or is that individual?
They are individual products that are sold through the workplace. So they're all portable, they're all rate stable, that employees can keep them. However, while they're employees of a group, they are payroll deducted.
So most people are participating through payroll deduction, their employer-sponsored group. Now, when you started getting into this, did you know, because these are all morbidity products, did you even understand the events like catastrophic care and, these kind of things?
I've always been a big believer in life insurance. I mean, you just have to open up a newspaper and know that these types of things happen, and when people aren't expecting them and that sort of thing. So I've always had my own life insurance policy. The supplementals, although I didn't realize how important they really were until I actually had my own event.
When you take it from the business scenario to your own personal event, you had a challenge that came up in your life. Talk a little bit about that.
When I was 42 and working, selling life insurance and starting this supplemental benefits business, I started experiencing some numbness and tingling in my left foot. And it progressed over a period of 3 weeks to where I was pretty much numb from my waist down.
So it really was accelerating over a 3-week period.
Yeah, it was getting worse and worse, and I was trying to kind of pass it off. Maybe it's my office chair, maybe I'm not, sitting right or something like that. And one day as I was walking down the hall at the office, I just fell over unexplainably. And I knew then it was something serious. So at the time I wanted to see a neurologist. However, in this world, this health insurance world, you have to have a referral from your primary care doctor, who was my gynecologist. So it was time to go see him. So in the course of wanting to see the neurologist, I had the full workup of all the women's issues as well.
And they discovered?
Yes, because I was over 40, it was time to have a mammogram. I went in and...
Excuse me though, were you having regular mammogram?
Actually, I had one at 40, but the technology has changed a lot now that it's all digital.
So what was the time spread between your
2
age?
years.
So 2 years, the technology had moved that much forward?
It had.
Well, have you ever thought about the experience of advancement? This is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. So anyway, so they discovered a few things, and they said they didn't see it on the original films, so they wanted to take another look. And long story short, it turned out that I had both cancer in situ in my left breast, in addition to invasive breast cancer.
How did that hit you emotionally?
The first thing, well, first I was just in shock. In fact, when my doctor called me to tell me the news, I was like, why is he calling me? I mean, I had to sort of put it out in my mind, and he says, well, we have this news, and I was just shocked, and I had enough wherewithal at the time to say, will you call my husband and tell him? And so then we went home. The first thing I thought about was my kids. I mean, I know they had a good friend in middle school who had passed away from cancer. And so cancer is a very scary thing for
And they were
kids.
aware of that?
They were, yeah. This was my daughter's friend. And so I wanted to reassure them that I would be okay. The second thing I was worried about was I was just starting a business, and we just didn't have money set away for me to take time off to recover from a cancer diagnosis. So I was concerned on just a bunch of different levels.
Did you have any family experience in breast cancer?
There is no cancer in my family
So this was
whatsoever.
really a shock, because there's just nothing in your family.
You could have knocked me over with a feather. I never saw this in my future. In fact, prior to being diagnosed with both multiple sclerosis and breast cancer within 2 days of each other, I would classify myself as one of the healthiest people I know. I have no allergies, exercised, ate right, did all the right things. It just completely blindsided me.
When you think about this, because when we're in an insurance field and this happens to us, we always think about it, we're helping people defend their financial portfolio, their financial way of life, their lifestyle. That's the whole issue of defensive planning. How did that now re-galvanize your thinking about what you do for a living?
What it made me realize is that most people are not aware of the financial loss that can occur with a serious illness. Most people feel that they're bulletproof, and I did too. We weren't setting aside money for one of us becoming very
Health
sick.
emergencies,
exactly.
any of this.
We were saving money for college, we were saving money for our retirement, and the year that I was diagnosed with cancer, even with health insurance, our out-of-pocket costs were $18,000 that year.
And that was $18,000 you didn't have.
Exactly. And thank the Lord, I just paid off my last bill. Here we are 4 years later to Mayo Clinic. They were wonderful to me.
If you want more information on how you're able to secure coverage after cancer, just email me at steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com, and I'll email you our free quote questionnaire for life insurance and supplemental insurance. The questionnaire will take about 13 minutes. Is your financial security worth 13 minutes? I know it is. When we come back from the break, I'll continue our interview with breast cancer survivor Molly Mabry, and you can hear more about her journey through terror and triumph in the M segment of our show. We'll be right back after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back to The Name of the Game. I'm Steve Savant, and just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show today, always consult your doctor and your insurance professional. Coming up in the M segment of the show, Molly Mabry will continue to talk about the financial impact of breast cancer and the preventative solutions she offers through supplemental insurance products.
Well, welcome back to our second segment, Molly. You know, everybody's probably now wondering after the commercial break, what's happened now? Of course, you had to go to the doctor. You had $18,000 bill that you had to pay out of pocket. How long did it take you to pay that off?
Well, it took about 4 years, and but it was so financially things are much better than they were then, and physically I feel great.
Let's talk about that. How are you feeling now? What's your prognosis?
Prognosis is because they caught the cancer at such an early stage that I have a great outlook, very low chance of reoccurrence.
And what kind of exams did they do to kind of follow up now? How many? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months?
Right. I'm on an every 6 month schedule now, up to 5 years. And I will be 5 years cancer free next summer.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
If you had to exhort all of us that are watching right now on this show, especially females, to get exams, how could you underscore that now?
I would just say that cancer is something that it knows no boundaries. I mean, 1 out of every 2 men are diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, 1 out of every 3. So just get checked. I mean, I'm so grateful. We were so aggressive with my treatment. I was over cancer 3 days after I found out I had it because of the surgery and the chemotherapy. I'm confident that it's not going to make its way back in my life for a very long time.
If now knowing what you're, because you're in our industry and so forth, when should we start taking these exams? When should we really have them? Do you think? Because everybody thinks, well, I want to hit 50, I have to think about it. What are you thinking about?
I would say whenever the doctor recommends, you should go. I mean, it's much better to deal with these things before they become a problem. I wasn't feeling sick. I didn't feel a lump. I didn't feel anything other than this falling down at work thing. But luckily, because I follow my doctor's guidelines, I'm sitting here today.
Well, now you're cancer-free for 5 years. You're back in the saddle at work. You're working now. Talk a little bit about how this has impacted the way you do business.
Well, I'm telling you, there is some irony or some cosmic thing going on that I am in supplemental benefits and I had this event happen. It's really made this personal for me. I believe that every person should be offered the ability to purchase some sort of supplemental critical illness policy so that they can be prepared for these kinds of challenges. 70% of bankruptcies today are caused for medical reasons, and that's when people had health insurance. So it's something that, your income is affected, your doctor bills and that sort of thing, your family's affected. It does a lot. So.
But why doesn't, this is where we talk about supplemental, I thought wouldn't medical insurance take care of this?
At the time that I was diagnosed, I had a $3,000 deductible. Then there's this other thing called a maximum out of pocket. Maximum out of pocket, you had to get up to $4,500. I missed about 8 weeks of work. And at that time, I wanted to go see a doctor that was not in network. And so all of those charges were my own.
So when you sell supplemental benefits, it really helps that gap area where medical doesn't pick up. That's what we're really talking about.
Exactly. And I think before I got sick, I thought health insurance would take care of everything. And because of this experience, I know that it doesn't always work that way.
A lot of consumers watch our show, and I have to say, think about this. Everybody thinks the way you thought. They think my medical insurance will pick this up. I'll just be good for the deductible. I might even have an 80-20 plan, and I'm done. But that's not the way it really happens.
No, and the thing about cancer is every year you've got to meet that deductible because you've got to keep going back for your treatments and that sort of thing too. So
this is a preemptive, we're talking about using this as a preemptive sale. When you're having catastrophic illness, sickness, or even an injury, you want to be able to figure out what does your medical cover now, and especially after, of course, we're moving into Obamacare. All the rules could change. We need to know what it is. Every day when you sell, what's your number one supplemental benefit that you think is so important, and that's the one you sell?
there's three things.
All right.
First of all, you have to have life insurance. You have to protect your family, especially when you've got young children and that sort of thing. Second thing is you got to protect your income. So a disability plan is critical. And the third thing is critical illness. Critical illness pays out in a lump sum upon diagnosis, and it would have relieved a lot of fears and a lot of strife and stress in my life with that lump sum cash payout.
I'm thinking if you had to cover, you said 18,000, let's just call it 20,000, kind of a nice round number. To get coverage for 20,000 in your 40s, being female, would have been very inexpensive.
Very inexpensive. And the nice thing is that with these policies, you stay the age you are when you enroll. So if you enroll when you're 30 and the policy costs $5 a month, it'll stay $5 a month for your entire life.
So really, if we had family history of breast cancer, why would you not do this as a preemptive act?
I have no idea.
So, because you would, right? I mean,
Right.
because that's what we're saying. People have predispositions in their family for certain diseases, certain sicknesses, even nursing home care.
Right.
And this is a good, really a good outreach that we're doing today, saying, hey, this is something that's really economical, especially female in their 40s. This is not a lot of money.
Well, and I just want to stress that it's not just people who see the warning signs on the highway, that these kinds of things happen, and it's important to know the risk and get educated about it.
Well, you're listening to Molly's story. It's a story that could be your story, and that she's in our business and selling this kind of supplemental benefit is really great. I want to thank you for being on our show, Molly. That was great.
It's nice to meet you.
You bet.
If you want more information on how you're able to secure coverage after cancer, just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com, and I'll email you our free quote questionnaire for life insurance and supplemental insurance. The questionnaire will take about 13 minutes. Is your financial security worth 13 minutes? I know it is. When we come back from the break, we'll watch Molly Mayberry's inspiring internet video on healing and hope, our tribute to Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2013, in the E segment of our show. We'll be right back after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back to The Name of the Game. I'm Steve Savant. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas on the show, always consult your doctor and insurance professional. Coming up in the E segment, we'll watch Molly Mabry's inspiring internet video on Healing and Hope, our tribute to Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2013. I want to just show you the actual statistics of Molly's journey through all the medical issues. And think about this, when you look at all the expense loads that she had to go through, it's almost $40,000. It took her almost 4 years to pay that off. It's interesting to note that you're looking at her first occurrence, the diagnosis, her surgery, the chemotherapy, her hospitalization, her cosmetic recovery, and the therapy that she needed to go on. Think about this, for $38,000, if she had a catastrophic or critical illness, she could have paid about $25 at her age a month, and that could have covered all these bills. So it's really interesting. When you think about it, this is the impact that we have when we're talking about supplemental insurance products like critical illness or catastrophic care. Let's watch her show.
3 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer after a routine mammogram. You could have knocked me over with a feather. Cancer does not run in my family. I lived a healthy life at that point. I did the things that you were supposed to do to be a healthy person. And when the radiologist said we need to take those films one more time, I thought, you've got to be kidding me. This is not cancer. The first thing I thought about was my family. I knew that this would be hard for my children to understand. And the second thing I worried about were our finances. You see, I had just recently started back to work full-time, and we were attempting to save money for our kids' college. I had stayed home with my children for that for quite a long time, and so I was getting back into the workforce so that we could begin to recover from me being home. I was very worried about our finances, but at the time I knew we had a $3,000 deductible on our health insurance, and I thought we could come up with that. When the bills started rolling in after all of my surgeries and treatments and chemotherapy, I began to realize that it wasn't going to be just $3,000 that we were going to have to come up with. I learned about something called a maximum out-of-pocket. Maximum out-of-pocket is what you have to reach after you reach your deductible. And in my case, that was another $1,500. There was also a tremendous amount of time off of work that I was not compensated for. You can't build up enough sick and vacation time to take care of a cancer. So that was money that was not coming in. Then there were medicines that were not covered, drugs that were outside the formulary of our health insurance. And to make a very long story short, my total out-of-pocket medical costs that year were $18,000. And I am ashamed, but I guess not ashamed to admit that that was an expense that our family simply did not prepare for. This made my calling for providing supplemental benefits for employers and employees into a passion. I feel that employees should be allowed to participate in these programs. It doesn't cost the employer anything. They can offer the benefits. If the employees find it a use for them, they can participate voluntarily. But by providing these types of coverages, your employees will know that you are doing everything you can to help them mitigate the cost of health insurance.
Well, that's our show for today. I want to thank Molly Mabry for being my special guest and today's money mentor. And remember, you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com. And don't forget what the good Reverend John Wesley once said, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. I'm Steve Savant. See you next week.